The end of World War II in September 1945 marked the beginning of a new chapter in military justice. While the world watched Germany's Nazi leaders face trial at Nuremberg, Imperial Japan's military commanders faced their own reckoning in Tokyo. These were men who had orchestrated warfare across Asia, ordered massacres, and overseen crimes against humanity on an unimaginable scale. But how did these notorious generals meet their end? This is the story of Imperial Japan's fall from power and the justice system that condemned its leaders. 1 week after Japan's official surrender on September 2, 1945, General Douglas MacArthur, Supreme Commander of the Allied powers, ordered the arrest of 39 suspects. Among them was General Hideki Tojo, the mastermind behind Japan's military aggression. The International Military Tribunal for the Far East, known as the Tokyo Trial, began on May 3, 1946, at the former Japanese Ministry of War building in Ichigaya, Tokyo. The tribunal was a historic and unprecedented forum of justice. Judges from 11 nations sat together: Australia, Canada, China, France, India, the Netherlands, New Zealand, the Philippines, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, and the United States. For nearly 3 years, from May 1946 to November 1948, the trial proceeded methodically. The prosecution presented testimony from 419 witnesses and examined over 4,000 pieces of evidence. 28 defendants, mostly top military officers and government officials, faced charges ranging from crimes against peace to crimes against humanity. The charges were divided into 3 classes. Class A crimes were directed at Japan's political and military leaders for waging wars of aggression. Class B and C charges covered conventional war crimes and crimes against humanity. Among the 25 defendants found guilty, the verdicts were severe. 16 received life sentences. But 7 men were sentenced to death. At the center of the trial stood General Hideki Tojo, nicknamed Razor for his sharp tactical mind. Born in 1884, Tojo rose through the military ranks to become Prime Minister of Japan and Chief of the Guandong Army. During his rule, millions died. Tojo was implicated in the invasion of China in 1937, where Japanese forces committed systematic massacres of civilians. He authorized the attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941, an act that brought America into the war. Under his command, Allied prisoners of war were brutalized, tortured, and executed. Civilians in occupied territories faced starvation, experimentation, and murder. Historical records estimate that between 2 to 3 million people died under circumstances he either directly ordered or tacitly approved. During the trial, Tojo initially showed little remorse, but as evidence mounted testimony about the rape of Nanking, the Burma-Thailand Railway, the Manila massacres, the weight of his crimes became undeniable. Remarkably, Tojo eventually accepted responsibility. "It is natural that I should bear entire responsibility for the war in general," he declared. But accepting responsibility was not enough to save him. On November 4, 1948, all remaining defendants received their verdicts. Tojo was found guilty on multiple counts of waging aggressive war, violating international law, and ordering inhumane treatment of prisoners of war. The sentence was death by hanging. On December 23, 1948, Tojo and 6 other generals were taken to Sugamo prison in Tokyo. In a deliberate act to prevent martyrdom, General MacArthur ordered that no photographs be taken. 4 members of the Allied Council served as official witnesses instead. As dawn broke, Hideki Tojo was hanged. His body was subsequently cremated, and his ashes were scattered over the Pacific Ocean from an American military aircraft, approximately 30 miles east of Yokohama. But Tojo was not alone. General Tomoyuki Yamashita, Tiger of Malaya, met a similar fate. Yamashita was a celebrated military commander, famous for his brilliant 10-week campaign down the Malay Peninsula that led to the capture of Singapore in 1942, one of Japan's greatest victories. However, after the war, Yamashita faced trial separately. While Tojo was tried in Tokyo, Yamashita appeared before an American military tribunal in Manila from October to December 1945. The charges centered on atrocities committed during the Battle of the Philippines, particularly in Manila. When American forces approached Manila in 1945, Yamashita ordered the evacuation of most Japanese troops from the city. However, Rear Admiral Sanji Iwabuchi, commanding 16,000 sailors, disobeyed Yamashita's orders and instead fortified Manila for battle. What followed was catastrophic. During the fierce street-by-street fighting, over 100,000 Filipino civilians were killed in what became known as the Manila Massacre. Yamashita argued that he had not ordered these atrocities and was not present when they occurred. Yet the tribunal found him guilty of allowing his subordinates to commit such crimes. His conviction established a legal precedent known as the Yamashita Standard or Command Responsibility, stating that a military commander can be held accountable for war crimes committed by troops under his command, even if he did not directly order them. On December 7, 1945, Yamashita was sentenced to death. However, unlike Tojo, who was hanged in December 1948, Yamashita was executed earlier. He was hanged in the Philippines, becoming one of the first major Japanese generals to face execution for war crimes. Besides Tojo and Yamashita, 5 other Class A war criminals received death sentences. These included General Iwane Matsui, who bore direct responsibility for organizing the systematic rape and massacre of Nanking in 1937, where hundreds of thousands of Chinese civilians were murdered. General Hitaro Kimura, who brutalized Allied prisoners of war during the construction of the Burma-Thailand Railway, also faced the gallows. Thousands of Allied soldiers died under his command from disease, malnutrition, and deliberate torture. Others executed included General Kenji Doihara, General Saishiro Itagaki, and Prime Minister Koki Hirota. Each had their own catalogue of crimes. But beyond these 7 condemned at the Tokyo trial, the justice did not end. Throughout Asia, separate tribunals tried approximately 5,000 Japanese military personnel for war crimes. More than 900 of these individuals were executed, and many others received life sentences. It was justice on an unprecedented scale. The executions on December 23, 1948, marked a historic moment. For the first time, a major military power's leaders were held accountable through international law for starting a war and committing systematic crimes against humanity. The trials established precedents that shaped international justice for decades to come. However, the trials were not without controversy. Many historians have criticized General MacArthur's decision to exempt Emperor Hirohito from trial. Some argue that Hirohito bore ultimate responsibility, as he was revered as a godlike figure and his approval was essential for major military decisions. But MacArthur believed protecting the emperor was necessary for Japan's post-war reconstruction and acceptance of democratic reforms. Some generals escaped prosecution entirely. Others, like those sentenced to life imprisonment, were eventually paroled in the 1950s. But for the 7 hanged Tojo, Yamashita, Matsui, Kimura, Doihara, Itagaki, and Hirota, the ultimate price. The deaths of Imperial Japan's notorious generals represented a turning point in history. These were men who had commanded armies, shaped nations, and ordered the deaths of millions. They had believed themselves untouchable, protected by military power and national pride. Yet in the end, they faced justice. Their executions sent a message that would echo through the 20th century, that military leaders would be held accountable for their actions, that no one was above the law, and that crimes against humanity could not be hidden behind military orders or national interest. The graves of these generals are marked by controversy. Some Japanese view them as wartime leaders unfairly judged by victors. Others see them as symbols of a dark period that must never be repeated. But their ultimate fate remains unchanged. They died as convicted war criminals, their names forever linked to a war of aggression and the suffering of millions. The Tokyo trials lasted 216 days and produced over 4,000 pages of testimony. They set legal precedents still used today. And they ensured that when Imperial Japan fell, its most notorious leaders fell with it, not in glory, but in